Hey, what's up, everybody? BDF44 coming at you with another video. All right, so the Minnesota Timberwolves were defeated tonight. The Grizzlies got the victory 114-106 in Minnesota in a thrilling game 6. Thrilling, great to watch those two young teams play. Unfortunately, we just saw mistakes from both young teams. Real bad mistakes. And Minnesota's ultimately was a death blow for them. With so many things to talk about, I honestly really paid very close attention to this game, and the thing that stands out, I'll say, and you guys saw my halftime video. You know that I was saying that the game was really exciting, and the two teams were going at it. But the thing about this game was, you just saw once again coaching play a big factor. Chris Finch did a lot of things down there that just, that you make decisions and you just live with those decisions. Jared Vanderbilt has been playing not so great in this series. He hasn't been scoring as the best. He's had some issues down there, right? But the thing about Vanderbilt is he's a fantastic rebounder. We've talked about all season how he just eats up rebounds like a mini Dennis Rodman. It's what he does. It's his function. If you have him down there, he's boarding like crazy. And you look at the box score and you see he only had like 16 minutes or something like that. And you look down and see the rebounding situation and you see how badly the Grizzlies out-rebounded the Timberwolves tonight. They out-rebounded them by over 20 boards. They had like 56 boards or something ridiculous like that. It was really bad. And the thing about it is, like, okay, it only came down to a couple possessions, and you can clearly see that the Minnesota Timberwolves were pretty much in control of the game. I'm not going to say in control of the game, but they had firm control of their lead. They were keeping the lead throughout the game. They weren't relinquishing it until about the 4-minute mark. And around the 4-minute mark, you just started seeing people try to be the hero. If I'm not mistaken, it started with D'Angelo Russell trying to force some things. And then it went on to Anthony Edwards trying to force things. And then Karl Towns started forcing things. You had a situation where Karl Towns was getting frustrated with Anthony Edwards for forcing things. And then in turning that frustration, Karl Towns then got a foul that they went and reviewed for a flagrant foul. It was like, okay, you got a lot of mistakes going on. You got the situation where the Minnesota Timberwolves had a nice stop. It was like 3 minutes to go. They got a stop somewhere around that same time. They found a way to get a stop. And they going back down the court, and there's momentum and all of that. And they're getting ready to get into a play. And then Finch calls a timeout. And you say to yourself, okay, he's calling a timeout. Okay, you reel your young team in. So after a couple seconds, my mind goes, okay, well, this is what you want him to do. You want him to call a timeout. And then out of the timeout, Karl Towns jacks up a long two from an awkward angle, bricks it, no rebound down the other way. And I'm like, so you trying to tell me this man stopped the momentum to call a timeout that would have run him a play that wouldn't get him anything better than that? When 2 nights ago he had a situation where his team was blowing not one but two 20-point leads while he sat there without calling timeouts. So essentially, this felt like him overreacting to the criticism of calling timeouts by calling a timeout in a situation where he otherwise probably shouldn't have called a timeout. And if you were going to call a timeout, then you should have ran a play that gave you something that was more high percentage. I know people give him a lot of credit for running plays and stuff. They gave him the credit for the play that almost clinched the game, Game 5, where McLaughlin got a bounce pass to Edwards from the corner 3. I know they say he's a great player, coach for that. But in this game, and on that play, that was not it. That was not it. That whole process was bad. He should have let those kids just run it. If you were going to call a timeout, they should have run a play that had them running toward the momentum, having them going toward the basket, drawing fouls. Especially given the fact that they had so much success doing so. The Memphis Grizzlies were not able to take advantage of none of those mistakes that we talked about between minutes 4, almost all the way to minute 1 in the fourth quarter, because they kept fouling every time something happened. Anytime the Minnesota Timberwolves made a mistake, the Memphis Grizzlies would go down the court and foul, the offensive foul, just about every time. And I mean, it was like clockwork. But lo and behold, big shots were hit. Tyus Jones shot down his former team in heartbreaking fashion. You could hear a pin drop for sure. Just really heartbreaking stuff if you're a Minnesota fan. I feel for them, but at the same time, this is one of those situations where you have to give your team an applause, because not only did they come out and overachieve, but they did so in a way that no one will really forget. You know, this is a young team. Most of these kids are going to go on to be whoever they're going to be. But in this moment, they were together on a playoff team that took the Memphis Grizzlies to 6 games in a situation where, you know, they probably shouldn't even won a game when you consider how good the Memphis Grizzlies have been this season. But they didn't care anything about that. And they went out there and they gave it their all. And I think if they would have had some more guidance, if they would have had the right habits worked into their situation a little sooner, I think they would have been a much more successful team in this series. Now, granted, they're building something. This is step one for a team that we should see in the playoffs for many years to come. So they have nothing to hang their heads about. I think they've discovered their identity, and I think if they could run back with this Memphis Grizzlies team, I think they'd feel very confident that they could win the series against this team, and I think that's a huge thing, considering this is a 7 seed who may not have made the playoffs many seasons. So this is a fantastic situation for them, and even though I was disappointed in how they ultimately just were immature down the stretch of the game and just didn't seem like they had the right mindset for themselves to close out this win. Ultimately, they learned. I think they learned, and that's the most important thing. I think guys like Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, they got their hearts broke tonight. I looked at Anthony Edwards when John Morant was trying to console him, so to speak, say a good game. He wasn't really trying to hear it. Like he was real salty, but in a genuine way. Like this one's gonna hurt for a couple of months, and that's what you want, because he's gonna feel that feeling, and he's gonna look at his mistakes, and that's what you're hopeful for. That he won't not only remember the feelings, but he'll remember why. He'll remember when he tried to jump and try to jump that steal against John Morant in Game 5. Had he not did that and played real good defense, he probably would have bodied him up, and maybe different result, maybe. When you think about tonight, some of them forced shots, hero ball situations where he was trying to jack up early shot clock shots, him and Karl Towns. It was several of those shots that you saw down the stretch of the game where you're just like, these are losing possessions. These are the things you do if you want to draw up a loss. Write it in the script. Shoot a 3-point shot with 20 seconds left on the shot clock. Shoot a mid-range jumper with no one in sight down to rebound it. These are things that they did. D'Angelo Russell hiking up 3 mid-range shots in the clutch for no reason, clanking off the side. Like, these things are things that they should hold themselves accountable for when they feel this pain. And a lot of people, depending on how they are, they're not going to learn because they'll blame each other. They'll look at each other's mistakes. He did this, he did that. But no, each and every one of them did something in this series that contributed to why they didn't get up out of this thing with a victory. Just like everybody contributed to why they got the success that they were able to get in 6 games. I can think of Jaden McDaniels, how on fire he was tonight with 24 points. He was fantastic. I also think about a game where he wasn't so good. A couple nights ago, we called him out. You know what I mean? Think about Dylan Brooks tonight, how he played well. And think about in the last game, he was 1 for 10. Like, these are young teams who both did things that could have easily both won or lost the series for them. Two young teams. One team was just a little bit younger. That's what it really came down to. But it was exciting. You know, all in all, this is one of my favorite series, maybe ever. Like, just remember looking at a series and just thinking back all of my favorite series and favorite teams that I enjoyed rooting for. I really enjoyed rooting for this Minnesota team and this Memphis squad, you know. And what was fun for me personally was just being able to finally root for Patrick Beverley. You know, how fantastic he was running around down there. That usually, if not always, I'm rooting against him. Because he's always played on teams that I just couldn't get with. But finally, this was a neutral situation. Nothing to do with my Lakers. And it felt good to be able to root for that guy. It felt good to be on the right side of some of the stuff that he's doing, you know, because he was a menace out there. And he gave them all they could handle. And I think he's earned a home. I think he's found a home. I believe Minnesota should want him multiple years at this point. And let him finish out his career with these young kids. They like playing with him. He likes playing with them. There's no pressure on anybody to overachieve or anything. I just like the situation. And they should definitely want him going forward. Jordan McLaughlin was making some fantastic dimes out there. I think he made a name for himself in these playoffs. I said at the beginning of this series that they need to play him. I felt like they should have played several of those guys on that bench in Minnesota because they have some guys that can really play. Finch just didn't trust them, but that didn't necessarily mean they couldn't contribute. And Laughlin was definitely one of them. Start the series, he didn't play him, and I was calling it out. He called the man's number, and he did some fantastic things tonight, getting guys easy dump passes for dunks. Some of the best plays you saw in this series was him making dime plays for others. So big ups to that guy right there. Made the name for himself for sure. Should have got more minutes. So yeah, man. It's just what it was. Shout out to Taylor Jenkins for having his team ready. You know, Jaren Jackson Jr. was fantastic tonight, even though he couldn't stay on the floor for the majority of this series. I know he feels great because I know he's been hanging his head for all the foul trouble he's been in, but I really like what I saw from him overall. Big boards and things of that nature. You know, Brandon Clark needs to be mentioned 100 out of 100 times for what he did for the Memphis Grizzlies. There's no way they win this series without every single one of his offensive rebounds. That dude was the X factor. And like I said in the halftime video, he's going to be a heck of a problem for the next team. He's going to be a problem. It's the Golden State Warriors. He's going to give them headaches. It's that simple. He's going to give them headaches. So I can't wait for that series. We're going to break that down. I'll have some more conversation about that for sure. And that concludes the first round, everybody. We've covered the entire thing, every game of the first round on this channel. I thank you guys for rocking with me. Go check out my playoff thoughts. We're going to keep it going, of course, for the rest of the playoffs, if possible, unless something crazy happens where I can't do it. But I'm into it. I love doing this. And, you know, my thing is not really necessarily give you the numbers. I'm not the most accurate person. But I do give you a reaction, and that reaction comes from a person who's been watching this game very closely his whole life. So for whatever that's worth, this is what it is. My name is Bedia44. I'm pretty sure there's more to say about this game. It was so much to break down, but I think I'll cut it there. Minnesota played their hearts out, but my prediction was held firm intact. I got that one right too. I had some right, had some wrong, but Memphis in 6 was one that I called from the jump. I just felt like the Memphis Grizzlies, you know, were definitely favored to win this series, but it was more so about the Minnesota Timberwolves, of whom I thought could really give them a heck of a run with the matchups and things of that nature. Yeah, they were a monster. I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to who you choose to play with this Minnesota squad. I firmly believe that, and they're not the only team I felt this way about. But with this team especially, you can do more with the roster than Finch got out of it. I'm not saying he's a bad coach. I'm not saying he's a good coach. I'm just saying I saw his team in the playoffs. He needs his credit for that. I saw him drop some good plays. He needs his credit for that. But he made some incredibly huge mistakes, glaring mistakes that, you just want to see a young team's coach not make. But everybody's young in this situation, and I'm pretty sure they're going to give him another shot at it since he made the playoffs. And we'll see if there's some improvement for year to year. He's on my radar, as are a lot of these coaches in these playoffs. And, I didn't see the greatest. I'm not going to sit here and pretend. It just is what it is. But I'll tell you this, Karl Anthony Towns had a good playoffs. But you want to see him sure it up. If I want to keep talking about this, Karl Anthony Towns needs to sure it up. His focus gets derailed too easily. Too easily. It was a situation where he was sitting at the free throw line. It was just a minor situation. Maybe it was nothing, but I noticed it. And the whole arena was sitting there quiet for him. The whole arena. And Dylan Brooks just clapped his hand one time. And it threw his rhythm off and he bricked the free throw. Now, maybe it wasn't related, but I got the feeling it was. I really did. And maybe I shouldn't even say that. Maybe I have no reason to say that. But what I'm telling you is my vision is telling me that Karl Anthony Towns gets easily derailed. And he's going to have to shore that up. He's going to have to figure out why that is. It's not enough to just be aggressive. You got to be sharp. And he's still a young player, even though he's a star in this league and all that. He's still got some growing to do, and they have some coaching to do of this young team, and they have to be receptive to that coaching. But there's some things to learn about how to win that I think this team could really pick up on if they study the film and be receptive to those mistakes. Because it's all about possessions. Early shot clocks, once again. Shots like that, misreads in the paint. I think about a play where Karl Towns misread Jaren Jackson. Little defensive stuff like that. Learning where to be on a defensive end with how to position yourself in such a way to stay a threat while not fouling. Little things like that. There's growth for Karl Towns, but it's going to be on A-Rod and that ownership to make sure that they have the people around him to coach him up and the rest of that young team. Because if they do the right things, they keep this young core together, pay them, keep that core together, I think they'll make them proud. I'm not going to say they're going to win a championship someday because that's a tall task. But they'll make the playoffs a lot, and they'll be in contention at some point. And the chips will fall. So all you can ask at this point, looking at how competitive the field is that you have a core that you believe in over the next 10 years. Because those cores, those sets of teams that have that, will just battle it out, and we'll probably see a bunch of different champions unless some kid comes along like LeBron and dominates. But as of right now, with the exception of maybe Giannis, there is no one guy. So I think every team should just build for sustainability and ride this wave because the NBA is fresh right now, and we're going to see these kids become the next superstars. It's that simple. The days of the Durant and all those dudes, that's about it. It's Karl's time now. It's Ja's time. It's Desmond Bane's time. It's time for these youngsters, and I'm here for it, man. BDL 44 once again. Thank you all for watching. I'm out.